How did PlayStation take over gaming? Hey gamers, Vesper here. PlayStation has been a dominant force in gaming for nearly 3 decades, but how did Sony go from a newcomer in the 90s to the undisputed king of consoles? And has the PlayStation empire ever faced any serious drama? Let's dive in. The rise of PlayStation. It all started in the early 90s. Back then, Nintendo and Sega were the undisputed champions of gaming. Sony, they weren't even in the fight yet. But then came the fateful betrayal. Sony was originally working with Nintendo to create a CD-based add-on for the Super Nintendo. Sounds cool, right? Well, at the last second, Nintendo ditched Sony and partnered with Philips instead. Sony was humiliated, but instead of giving up, they got even. They decided to take their prototype and turn it into a full-blown console, the original PlayStation, released in 1994. And it was a game changer, literally. The PlayStation's CD format allowed for bigger games, better music, and full motion video, things that just weren't possible on Nintendo's cartridges. Developers loved it, players loved it, and by the time the dust settled, the PlayStation had outsold the Nintendo 64 by over 60 million units. Sony had arrived, the PS2, the perfect console. Fast forward to 2000, and Sony dropped the PlayStation 2, the best-selling console of all time. Why was it such a success? 2 words, backward compatibility and DVDs. See, while other companies focused purely on gaming, Sony saw an opportunity. The PS2 wasn't just a gaming console, it was a DVD player. And at the time, standalone DVD players were expensive. The PS2, cheaper, and it played some of the best games ever made, like Grand Theft Auto 3, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Final Fantasy X. Sony was unstoppable. By the end of the PS2 era, they had sold over 155 million units. To put that in perspective, that's more than the Xbox 360 and PS3 combined. The PS3, Sony's first big mistake, but not everything was smooth sailing. In 2006, Sony got a little too confident with the PlayStation 3. First problem? The price. The PS3 launched at $599, which even today sounds crazy. The reason? Sony packed it with cutting-edge technology, including the infamous Cell processor, which was so complex that even developers struggled to make games for it. Meanwhile, Microsoft had the Xbox 360, which was cheaper, easier to develop for, and had a killer online service with Xbox Live. Sony, on the other hand, launched the PS3 with no party chat and a weak online store. For the first time, PlayStation wasn't on top, but Sony didn't give up. Over time, they dropped the price, improved the online experience, and released incredible exclusives like The Last of Us and Uncharted 2.